And we're back with another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, where we cover the latest news and trends in pop culture each and every week, twice a week, wherever you get your podcasts. And on this week's episode for this weekend, I have an interview with Rob McCallum and Jay Bartlett, the star and the director of Nintendo 64 Quest, coming soon. So go ahead and follow those two wacky Canadians, as I'm on the show with one now. Go ahead and join those two wacky Canadians today by starting off your quest at n64quest.com. Plus, also as well, Inside Sports Fantasy Football. Joe Soro is somewhere on the West Coast or Southwest or somewhere for Memorial Day weekend. Go ahead and check out what he's doing today at LakersBall.com. Plus, also as well, of course, go ahead and check out what he's doing as well at Simblades with a Y.com. Yes, we are doing another stream because the Magic Man in the evening, that stream went not so well. And there's nothing really I could do because I was in the middle of a driver's ed trading. So, yeah, nothing right off my phone. I could only do so much.
How'd that go, Gerald?
I lived through it. So there you go. No, the girls are great doing their driving, but yeah, only so much I can do trying to start and run streams off the phone. Once you left, I was just like, Magic Man? Magic Man. Because I never heard you. I couldn't hear you. Because I
could hear
I
me.
didn't. Yeah, last thing I want my daughters to do is get distracted by Magic Man driving down the road, complaining about the Celtics. And, it did work out now because we've got you here. Of course, it is Gerald Glassford. Thanks so much again. And support all of our other great friends, the Lakerholics crew, which were on earlier today, Laker Tom and Jamie Sweet, Lakerholics.com. Of course, Stone Hansen at report_court. He's been tweeting all day about the NBA draft. Go ahead and check that out there. John Costa, Lakers Corner and Clutch Talk. Of course, also as well, Empire Jeff TV and Lakers in 5. And of course, Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Yo! Also as well, of course, John McCallion channel, and support all these great channels. Speaking of supporting great channel, where in the hell are those 4 subscribers that left us within the past couple days? Come back. Come back. Come back. We have some good stuff here. Please come back. We're losing subscribers. That's not good. So if you haven't subscribed already, because we lost 4 subscribers, we need 4 of you that are watching now that are not subscribing to subscribe so you can get the latest notifications on when we go live on the air with the latest Lakers Fast Break podcast. Yeah, Hotel del Coronado, cool, bro. Yeah, I went there a couple months ago. Yeah, always a great place to go. I've been there for quite a few times. Actually, even had meals there. Yeah, really good place to go. The Hotel del Coronado, right there in Coronado Island. One of the oldest hotels on the West Coast, and they absolutely love the history that you can actually check out along the walls because they have all those pictures from 60, 70, 80, 90 years ago, which is really cool to see. But it is the Lakers Fast Break. It is Gerald Glassford, along with the madman himself, the Magic Man, Sean Grice. Great to have him here. Apologies again for the issues earlier on that, but he is back, and we want to vent. We want to bemoan our own organization that we love so well because the evil hatred Celtics, thanks to a second gift by the Indiana Pacers, who, sports baby, I'm sorry, cover your ears, sports baby, choked again as they lost a lead, which I knew they were going to lose. I'm watching it from a Greek place at around third quarter, and I'm like, they're up by 12. The end of the third quarter, they're going to lose this. Sure enough, they did. No Tyrese Halliburton, no chance to keep the lead in the fourth quarter. And of course, they lost. And of course, Boston Celtics are now up 3-0, moving on to the finals. It's not a question of if, but when. 114 and 111 was the score. And with that, how mad and how discouraged does this make you as a Lakers fan? And here today to discuss this good man indeed. It is the Metallica man himself. He looks like he's ready to go out and punch somebody out in the middle of a Metallica concert. It is the Magic Man, Sean Grice. And Sean, great to have you here. The Pacers choked again. Boston is sweeping the Mavs, according to Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. I disagree. I think the West is a little bit stronger than what the Patsies in the East have given Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Be that as it may, it's going to be depressing because I think Minnesota will make a series of it, at least enough to the point where by the time the final starts on June the 6th, it's going to be a tough road to hoe for anyone to beat the Celtics.
Yeah, unfortunately, that looks to be the case, Gerald. The the prospects are this is that the worm has turned for the Boston Celtics. I know earlier on, our esteemed panelist and colleague Joe Soro was saying
He's esteemed, or is he just steamed?
in his own mind he's esteemed.
Okay, he's just steamed normally because he's pissed off at something. Actually,
He said that Boston usually ends up coming up short in situations like this, and in the past that might have been true, but this was a young, inexperienced team about 5, 6 years ago, Gerald, and they've built up enough scar tissue to this point where they don't allow situations like this to get away from them anymore.
yeah, I
They're
agree.
they've become a really smart veteran team. And although we hate the Celtics, myself and Gerald both collectively like a lot of the players on that squad. Very smart, very skilled, very determined. And as Gerald noted, the opposite is true for the Indiana Pacers. I mean, the first 42, 44 minutes of a game, they can look like world beaters, but the last 3 or 4 minutes, the ugliness of inexperience and youth, and just, you know what, Gerald? In all honesty, this was coming for Rick Carlisle after game 2 when he called out Pascal Siakam for being basically called him out of shape. I mean, Tyrese Halliburton goes down, your best player. You need your best scorer to at least give you a chance, man. This is the Eastern Conference Finals. This is in February, and you're on the West Coast. You're playing the Sacramento Kings, and you want to give Pascal Siakam a break, so you only play him 28, 31 minutes. This is the Eastern Conference Finals. You are 4 wins away from a finals appearance, and Rick Carlisle throws in the towel for game 2 and says, "Yep, we're gonna regroup. We're gonna." I bet he gave him the old Gipper speech too, at the, and it blew up in his face again, man. It blew up in his face again, and he deserved it because he decided that they were going to, uh, load manage in an Eastern Conference game that was critical, and now you're down 3-0, and a lot of people could argue you should be up 2-1.
Absolutely, and they've choked not one but two leads, and it's been very disappointing to see exactly how this has gone down because, of course, that means that at this point you can count this series over. It just depends if Indiana is going to get one game in there, but with Tyrese Halliburton, your best player, not playing most likely in Game 4, I don't hold out much hope left that it'll ever get back to Boston.
No, it won't. It won't. This series is over come Monday night. That'll be all she wrote. Thank you for coming out, Indiana. Enjoy your summer. And you may or may not be in this position ever again. Just to let you guys know, because as great and excellent of a player Tyrese Halliburton is, and as a lot of depth you guys have, you're not going to be able to keep all that depth. This is the NBA. What happens today isn't necessarily what's going to happen tomorrow. And sometimes you only get one shot, Gerald. And if you blow it, you blow it. And Ben Shepherd did not show up tonight. Uh, you're missing Benedict Mathurin. You were missing Tyrese Halliburton. Somebody else needed to step up, and it can't just be TJ McConnell. TJ McConnell is a fine player, a very good player, but he is not in any way going to impact the Pacers winning against the Celtics in the same way you can't expect Jaden McDaniels to uh, shore up his game and level up against the Mavs. You need your best players to play at their best, and I love Andrew Nemhard, Gerald. He's a Canadian kid, plays real hard, but he makes stupid mistakes at the end of games with the ball in his hands. If he's shooting the ball, that's different. But when
Mhm.
the ball is in his hands, he does not make smart, sound decisions with the basketball.
I agree with you, my friend. And Arthur Johnson, truly appreciate the very kind super chat. Got it right up there for you. Thank you again for doing so. Truly appreciate it. He says he looks at Gafford and PJ Washington, think those names were floated around at the deadline. Ham was not culpable, but every time I see them on the Mavs, I think, how does Rob still have a job? Arthur, I have been saying that for years. Magic has been, his ears have been the brunt of me saying that for years. Why does Rob still have a job?
Three
Ever
straight
since
years, yeah.
ever since they won in the bubble, ever since the debacle in just the year later, a little less than a year later, you could see it. The way he was building a team, he was taking pieces off that were helping the Lakers get to the championship level. It was just one by one, changing and tweaking, overdoing it, wrong move after wrong move, built the oldest team, almost ever, I think, ever played together as a team, one of the oldest teams ever. And then just never has found its rhythm. Had one decent trade deadline that I think has saved his job in the eyes of Jeannie Buss. But yeah, the proof's in the pudding. He's just not able to get it done, Magic Man. It's very, as Arthur points out, Gafford and PJ Washington. I know PJ Washington, Frank is very high on PJ Washington. I think he's playing at a level. I think he reminds me in a way of Rui Hashimura, because in the playoffs he's kind of hit or miss right now in this series, but
He is. He
in the
is.
first two rounds, he's playing at a level way above his head,
Yep.
as Rui
Yep.
did.
A little
So
more a little more skilled than Rui, can
if
do a lot more on the pick and roll, but
they're both
good
shooting about 32%
good comp, Gerald.
for their
Good comp.
career. Yeah, they just remind me so much of each other, how they're shooting way above their head. Now, with Rui, we saw that he was able to continue that, because I asked that during the offseason. Which Rui are you going to get? Are you going to get the Rui in the playoffs? Or are you going to get the Rui, that we've seen for the first 4 years in the league? And obviously we saw a Rui, for the most part, shoot 42% and give you at least that effort out there. Didn't ultimately work out because he just wasn't aggressive enough and didn't get enough shots. But with PJ Washington, hopefully that can continue for Dallas if they are going to move on.
Absolutely. I think the one separation factor is that um, a lot of hoop heads have really admired PJ Washington's game over the years. Um, as far as pick and roll numbers, being a screen setter and a roller, on top of, at times he's got really good shooting splits, and as Gerald has said, it's hot or cold with PJ. That being said, he was a peacock in a mud hole in Charlotte, and quite frankly, the NBA scouts do a very good job of acknowledging really good players in horrible situations, and good on the Dallas Mavericks and shame on Rob Pelinka and the LA Lakers, because PJ Washington's name was linked to the Lakers for the past couple of years, but the Mavs made a good trade and got a pretty decent player. And Gerald, for that reward by Nico Harrison, PJ Washington has shown up in games and in periods of games where Luca or Kyrie don't, and
Yeah.
that's been a separation factor for the
That has been.
Mavs, as opposed to, say, the Wolves or the Nuggets, where they don't really have that third guy who can kind of step into that role if the top two aren't playing well. But PJ Washington has, and good on Arthur for mentioning Daniel Gafford as well. But I'll go back to Gerald's point. I think it's more about a domino effect with Derek Lively. I think that one of the big successes of the Mavericks, and Gerald's pointed this out, is that Derek Lively has been the most consistent big in the Western Conference from the beginning of the playoffs up until now. He's played his role. He rebounds the ball. He correctly rolls when he's supposed to roll. He pops when he's supposed to pop. Even though he can't shoot, he's still a body out there. And as Gerald has pointed out, it's Lively that creates the domino effect for guys like Gafford and Washington to kind of have success on the court with Luka and or Kyrie resting.
I agree. Well said, my friend. But once again, it is the Lakers fast break. It is the Magic Man, Sean Grice, the Metallica Man, right there for you. He is, of course, along with me, Gerald Glassford. I am not Jamie Sweet. I will change that from earlier today.
You know
Thank
what,
you so much.
Gerald? And let's be honest. You're from the city of Los Angeles. And even though Metallica came from San Francisco, they really made their name in LA.
Oh yeah, well, a lot of bands got started in the '60s. It was up in San Francisco because that's where, obviously with the hippies and the freedom movement and all that. But for '70s and '80s, it did move down south to Southern California in that area, and you go to a lot of local clubs at that point in time. That's where a lot of those LA bands or West Coast bands made their name for the most part until the grunge area, which made him up near Seattle, and then goes from there. A little rock history lesson for everyone. But yes, go ahead, Matt.
No, I was going to say absolutely, Gerald. But ironically, Smells Like Teen Spirit was recorded in Van Nuys, California, not
Oh, I believe it.
Seattle.
I know, but still, I mean, that's where they made their name,
Yep.
was in the Seattle area. I mean, they're based in Seattle, but that's where they really started earning their keep. But yeah, you're right. They recorded it down south. Was it Capitol?
Yes, Capitol
Yeah, the
Records.
famous
Yeah.
Capitol Records building. So there you go. Absolutely. Before it got bombed, and destroyed in Independence Day. But need I digress? What's cool, bro? Cool, bro. Cool, bro. Cool, bro. But once again, it is Mr. Z. You are trash, and we love to say that to you. But once again, it is the Lakers fast break. It is Joe Soro, not here again. He is out and about somewhere on the West Coast, but I'm here with the Magic Man, Sean Grice, along with me, Gerald Glassford. Thanks so much again for listening. Truly appreciate it. So, Magic Man, I want to ask you, how mad does it make you feel seeing that the Boston Celtics are on the verge of another finals? Go ahead, Magic. Gotcha.
Yeah, Gerald, I'm both disgusted and helpless at the same time because, unfortunately, if you've been watching the Lakers Fast Break podcast for years now, Gerald and Joe have kind of predicted that something like this could, and eventually will happen. That the Boston Celtics were moving in almost a polar direction as the Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, it's near polar. I mean, the Lakers have basically stayed like this, teeter-tottering for the past 3 years, and Boston's been ascending. And Gerald said this was bound to happen. It was just a matter of when, not if. And unfortunately, it looks like we're at the when part, because in the 154 previous series, Gerald, that have been 0-3, no team in the NBA has come back from an 0-3 deficit.
And
And
Indiana is certainly not going to come back.
and the Pacers are not going to be that one team. They are not going to be that one team. They're just not ready. They're still sipping on the Similac, Gerald. They're not ready for milk yet.
I
They're
bet Joe's house on that they're not going to come back. That's for sure.
I would bet
You would
Joe's
bet
house
Joe's
on
house?
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to bet both to bet Joe's house on that. So
Yep. we'll take the bet with the banks.
Absolutely, yes.
Whatever bank Soros with Chase.
Absolutely. So if they do come back and win, make sure you go after Joe's house. He lives in
Mm-hmm.
Temecula. That's all I know.
Yep.
But
Yep.
yeah, it's, what can you say? Absolutely. But again, it makes me angry just knowing that the Celtics are that much closer, Magic Man. So with that said, I heard it said, somebody mentioned it the other week. Should we be angry? Should Rob be motivated now that the Celtics are getting so close to another world championship to pull ahead from us 18-17? And my response is he should be motivated to win 18 all the time. So, yeah. I mean, it's what can you do? So, your thoughts, my friend. I mean, he should be motivated, Rob Blanca, to try to build the best team possible at all times.
At all times. At all times. Every year is a new year to try and get the Lakers better and in a position to be a constant contender. And 2022, 2023, nope. This year, nope. Rob has failed so far.
Yes.
Rob
he
has
has.
failed. It's it's his failings as to why we are here. And it's this position that we're in. He's the one who hung Luke Walton out to dry. He hung Frank Vogel out to dry. Hung Darvin Ham out to dry. And frankly, he should be on a red alert. But Gerald, I don't think he's going to be on a red alert, unfortunately. But this is going to be his third coaching hire. And normally GMs get one, Gerald. That's unsuccessful ones or new ones. They normally get one. You get one opportunity to let go of a coach that either you don't jibe with, or your philosophies differ on certain ways to build a team and construct a contender. But he's been not given one, two. Now he's on his third coach to be continued. And quite frankly, most organizations don't tolerate this kind of ineptitude, Gerald. Um, but Jeannie Buss seems resigned to it. I don't have any other word for it other than I think she seems resigned to the fact that you're going to recycle coaches every 2 years because, I mean, if they hire JJ Redick is going to pretty much get 2, maybe 3 years at the most, Gerald. And then he'll be out on his arse. And the Lakers will be looking for another coach. And we are just in a circle. Yeah, we're circling the drain. That's what it feels like. It feels like we're circling the drain with Rob Pelinka. Great, 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 great analogy there, Gerald.
I feel like we're about ready to go down the drain if that's the case. Because again, Magic Man. I mean, I said this at the end of the season. I just thought the Lakers were heading into the wrong direction, and I just did not see a way out. And Joe is talking about keep this team together, keep this team together, keep this team together, and you're really not going to be able to build many pieces if you try to keep this team together because of what you have to pay LeBron and what you have to pay D'Angelo. And I understand you keep them for asset management, but that's in the case of D'Lo. But you're going to spend $160 million for LeBron. That's way too much for what you're going to do. You're basically putting yourself in a situation where this is the roster you have going forward, essentially, with just some minor tweaks and changes here. And that's part of the problem. This team, where it's at, LeBron and AD. I asked this on an episode a couple weeks ago, I think, where I made it is LeBron and AD still a championship combination? And I said no. And I say that window is closed. And I say it's time to rebuild. And yes, to me, that includes AD, because I don't think you're going to get another 77 game season from AD oh, the statistics say you're not going to get another season from AD like this. I don't know if that's the case. May or may not be. We'll see. But I'm hoping I'm wrong on that. Again, as I say, when I'm wrong, the Lakers benefit from that. So in this case, I think that you will not get a full healthy season from AD maybe ever again. At least we're 77 games full. 65, I could still see him doing that. Maybe 70, but 77, I'm not so sure. So, Magic Man, that being said, Stone, who was the originator of all this, who should get the credit, has been saying since the season started before that the Lakers should blow this up. I think it's just looking more and more like, unless you want to stay in purgatory, that this team needs to go ahead and move in an entirely different direction.
They do, Gerald. It's not. It needs an extreme makeover. Let's just put it that way. Um, putting a little mascara or lipstick on this average looking squad right now will not do it justice. You need an extreme makeover. You need to get a cosmetic surgeon in here to reshape this roster, reshape the organization in a mold that's more conducive to success than constant feedback of recycled 45 wins, 43 wins, 47 wins, 45 wins, 43 wins, 47 wins. That's what it is with LeBron and AD right now, Gerald. I posed this question to Joe. When's the last time a LeBron James led team won more than 50 games? It's been 2019, 2020. So we're going on 4 into 5 years since LeBron's been able to have a consistent impact on winning. His defense is gone. It's gone. It up in smoke like dry ice. You ever seen dry ice turn from a solid to a gas, Gerald? That's pretty much LeBron's defense the past 2 years.
Oh yeah, I mean, I used to run Halloween shops, and those smokers, they use dry ice. You better be careful.
Right.
That stuff hurts if you accidentally touch it in the wrong fashion.
Yes,
You
sir.
must use gloves when you're using that, because you pay the price. Let me just say that. But Pale Fox has a good question. What team in the West is on its way down? Okay, let's put the Lakers, or probably would be the first name on my list personally, but let's put the Lakers out of this equation now. Let's talk about the teams that are on their way up and on the way down in the Western Conference, Magic Man. I will start with the teams that are on their way down, because that's a pretty easy mix to get. And I'm going to tell you right now, Sacramento and the Warriors are the two teams I would look at the most. Possibly the Pelicans as well, depending on how they rebuild their roster, because David Griffith seemed to be mighty pissed after the ending of this season. But I'm going to tell you right now, with whatever assets they have left, the Kings and the Warriors are my number 1 and 2 team to start looking at other alternatives for, because I think their window has about closed for those two teams as well.
Two good picks, Gerald. I will also stay in the Pacific Division and counter with the Phoenix Suns and the LA Clippers. I think those two teams are on their way down as well. I think the Pacific Division in the Western Conference is, as much as it's had 5 the Kings aside this year and the Warriors, but they've consistently had 4 or 5 playoff teams in the mix for the past 8 to 10 years. I think all 5 teams are in a state of flux. Gerald's mentioned 2. We don't need to go into the Lakers because we talk about them constantly, and the other 2. So I think that's starting to become the weakest division in the NBA. It's also one of the, outside of the Lakers and some of the Kings players, it's also one of the oldest divisions in the NBA. The Clippers are an older team, the Lakers, the Warriors especially. So all that whole division needs a rejuvenation of youth, and a lot of it, to try and muster up a competitive team that's not like this or not like this, but kind of ascending. And I agree with Gerald. I think the Kings and Warriors are about to go for a bad fall.
Once again, it is the Lakers Fast Break. It is Magic Man Sean Grice along with me, Joe Glassford. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Because the Magic Man, there are teams that I think are knocking on the door that could see an upturn next year in the Western Conference. And the first place I'd look for is Houston. That's the obvious one since they just missed out on the postseason, or at least the play-in mix. I'd also put in Memphis because you're getting a lot of healthy bodies back on the floor. Plus, they're still relatively young. Those are the two teams I would probably single out. If the Clippers or the Warriors or the Kings falter or the Lakers falter, you could see those two teams, I think, rise above. I don't think it's a little early for the Spurs, but I do think that those two teams right there I mentioned are probably the two I'd go to first as far as replacing any teams that falter. Yeah, Memphis, like Wabina said, because I can see the Grizzlies and the Rockets.
Yes, and we go from pretty much the west to the south, and it's kind of a turning of the page. That division, for the most part, is very youthful, very youthful. Outside of New Orleans, I would say any of the other four teams have potential to either be a play-in or a top six seed next year. Um, you've got the Mavs, you've got the Rockets, you've got the Grizzlies there, and of course the Spurs. The Spurs, obviously, uh, like Gerald said, I think they're still a year away from actually being a threat for a top six, but they're sleeper for a play-in next year. I think, with a shot of um, a couple more vets for Wemby to lean on as far as in-game experience,
You'll see
and
an improvement, but not that far.
not
Not
that
that far.
far. And they definitely need a real shot in the arm from the guard position, as far as anybody being able to create for themselves and create for everybody else. They get those two um, res- resolutions, they're going to be a threat. But as Gerald said, that's a little way down the road. Yeah, I agree. Houston, Memphis are at the top of the list for me as well. The the, the big deal for Memphis this time around is you are in a position now where you can address certain needs with one pick, but you got to hit the right pick. Kleinman and Taylor Jenkins really need to dig deep in this draft, Gerald, and figure out what player do we target in the draft that could change our fortunes, because they have a really solid team. They really do. And if Ja keeps his head on a swivel and and stays buttoned up, this is a team that's a threat to win 60 games again, because they were competitive with a bunch of 10 days and two-way contract players, some of which are going to be off the roster. And I would encourage other teams, the Lakers, to look at a couple of those guys who will be free agents and try and bring them into the fold. That being said, you still have a great core there, Gerald. Um, I got to be honest, as we're talking about Bronny James and we're talking about LeBron and the whole AAU system, I think we've seen enough from Zaire Williams, Gerald, to know that he's okay. He's not going to be a good NBA player. He's just okay. And they took a shot in the lottery with him. They can't miss this time, though, Gerald. They have to hit the target.
Absolutely. Once again, it is the Lakers Fast Break. It is, of course, Magic Man Sean Grice and me, Gerald Glassford. Thanks so much for watching this thing. Truly appreciate it. Of course, Magic Man, a lot of it has to deal with a new coach. And we haven't heard much on the front. I know there was some interviews done earlier this week. I know there's more to come, but people seem to be delaying or talking about it's delaying the inevitable that JJ Redick, the podcaster, will be your next LA Lakers coach. I think as the days go by, this will become more and more reality. But does this really help us where we need to go? Just because he's good friends with LeBron and AD will probably like him as well and all that good stuff. They're all laughing up on his podcasts. I'm not sure if that really helps the Lakers. Again, with all these other candidates that are out there, none of them move the needle on the surface. But any one of them in the right opportunity, you never know, maybe ending up being a good coach after all.
He might. He might. I'm not saying he. I'm not willing to say yes or no, Gerald. I have my doubts about him coming from the booth to a head coaching position and being able to hit the ground running, especially with a 39-year-old LeBron James. I mean, at this point in time, who would you center an offense around, Gerald? LeBron James or Anthony Davis?
At this point, I would say, I told you, I think the Lakers, if they ever started an offense, I would start with the pick and roll between LeBron and AD. And I'd run that 20 to 30 times a game. That's where I'd start it. That's where I'd go ahead and build my whole offensive structure around. They refuse to do it other than a handful of times in the game. And to me, it is so irritating. They'd rather do this one-on-one BS every single time, or they ISO, or they just do not move the ball. So if you're unwilling to move the ball, at least do something that is effective. And AD and LeBron at the top of the key doing pick and rolls each and every time will free up so much more for you as an offense than what you're doing already. So that's where I'd start the most. So
Yeah,
Dan,
and
I know it's getting out of your question, which one I would rather do it on,
mhm.
because I,
No,
be honest with you, I would not rather
yeah,
do it on either,
okay.
because you're getting about the same success level with each. I don't think one is infinitely more successful than the other. I see it, in the same way that Dallas is. Okay, yeah, it's just about when you utilize Luka or when you utilize Kyrie. And right now, Kid and the entire Dallas offense is very effective on when each one is showing off their strengths. You saw in the first half of the last game, Kyrie Irving. You saw in the last half in the fourth quarter, it was predominantly Luka Doncic. That's the type of thing you should see LeBron and AD emulate and then go from there.
No, that's a fair point. If that's the case, Gerald, if we just look at the history of JJ Redick as a player and the offenses he's been in, okay, let's look at Orlando. So Orlando was heavy pick and roll and or double post with, say, Dwight Howard and Martin Gortat. That was kind of their bread and butter. Stan
Mhm.
Van Gundy would run high pick and roll with Dwight Howard and either, Rafer Alston or JJ Redick, or take your pick about which guard he would use. Then you would have the double post with either Gortat and Howard, and somebody like Redick would be open for 3-pointers or dribble drive penetration. Moves on to Los Angeles, Gerald plays in another high pick and roll offense with Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and it's either high pick and roll or double low posts with Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan. And again, Redick's in a position where he gets a lot of wide open looks, or he can dribble drive with somebody like Lou Williams on the floor as well. So if we look at the history of the offenses Redick's played in, he is so antithetical and so polar opposite of ISO offense that it would be a glaring um, viewpoint, if Lakers are still running high ISO possessions with LeBron and AD, LeBron's running the offense. It's not JJ Redick, because if you look at the history of JJ Redick as a player, he did not play in teams with a high ISO efficiency and or percentage. He ran a lot of pick and roll, double high lows, and it was a motion offense. That's and as Gerald has pointed out, that's the kind of offenses he admires when he's announcing games. It's motion offense. It's not ISO. He likes movement. He likes dribble penetration with guys cutting, diving, dipping, wide open shots, or you trade a great look for an even better look. So if that's the case, Gerald, maybe JJ Redick is the right guy for that team, because he's more in a position to counter LeBron AD's ISO offense by pointing out that I've played in high motion double post offenses before that got good open looks, and we got high percentage shots. That being said, though, Gerald, if this is a case where Redick is running that, AD needs to be better in the post, getting rid of the ball quickly, especially when doubles come, because we know that AD doesn't handle ambush doubles very well. If he could see the double, he can pass out of it. But if he doesn't anticipate the double coming, or doesn't really look at where the other double is coming, then he's highly prone to making mistakes and turnovers, Gerald. So if Redick was the coach of the Lakers, AD would have to significantly improve how he plays in the low post.
Once again, it is, of course, Magic Man, Shaq Rice, Gerald Glassford here. It's a Lakers weekend, a little bit later. Lakers fast break for you. The Boston Celtics, the scum of the earth that they are up 3-0 over the Indiana Pacers, on the verge of moving into the NBA Finals. Tomorrow it is the Minnesota Timberwolves heading to Dallas after they choked their last game. They head into Dallas down 0-2, so we'll see what happens there as well. But I did want to go ahead and mention there's some things going on as far as what the Lakers need to do. Yes, a new coach, Magic Man, is necessary, but also we'll know in 6 days whether or not we keep pick number 17. So that's going to be very intriguing as well, my friend. So by the end of next week, we'll know for sure if we are keeping that pick, which I think most likely we will be.
Yeah, I think so, Gerald. I think we'll be keeping it. Given the fact that like New Orleans, like Gerald said, New Orleans is in what I like to call the pickle matrix. They have I'm just gonna say it. Zion Williamson is a very good player. He's not an excellent player, and he's not the transformational player that ESPN and other pundits pumped him up as. Uh, he has weight control issues. He has personal, interpersonal, and personal distraction issues. He's got at times a very lukewarm temperament when it comes to defense, and I'll just say that nicely. And he's 6'4", 270. It's hard to build a team around a guy who's 6'4", 270, even if he's a freight train coming down the track. You also have Brandon Ingram, who's due for a monster extension, Gerald. And do you give him that extension, knowing that you have to pay Zion again, and you're going to have to build the team around those two guys? And although Ingram is a very good one-on-one player, as far as team concept goes, Gerald, I would say he's at best a third or fourth option.
Yeah. I
So
know that there was some question when I was on the other day with Stone, and the thing is, I know that it's funny because you see these individuals that are out there, casual fans. You could tell casual fans as opposed to the hardcore fans that are out there trying to understand the draft. They'll see players like DJ Burns from North Carolina State. And it's like I mentioned the other day, it's like they're fascinated because he did well in a couple games in the tournament. It's like, oh yeah, can he be the next thing? It's like, first off, Kenny Lofton would be the closest comp I could get to him right now. But Kenny Lofton, I think, is more skilled. And I was told that he, after he got waived by Memphis, he did latch on with Utah. So he may still have an NBA future, but it's kind of iffy. I think he should be your comp. But the thing is, when you look at the stats and you look at what's as far as what you see, he's not a good rebounder for a guy his size. And that to me is troubling. If you're not getting 8 to 10 rebounds a game already in the minutes that you're allotted, Magic Man, for a guy his size, if you're only getting 4 rebounds a game, it reminds me of a lot of Brook Lopez. I mean, Brook Lopez at least was a scorer. And then obviously he developed the jump shot after that, but he couldn't rebound to save his life. Still can't rebound well to save his life. DJ Burns coming in there with that kind of size, or he's lost 45 pounds. Give him total credit on that. But not being able to rebound, I think, people should go ahead and say, at best, give him a two-way. But yeah, he's still got a long way to go before he gets in the league.
yeah, absolutely. Robin was the rebounder, not Brooke. That's for sure. Yeah, those numbers are a bit concerning, Gerald, and the red alarm should be sounding if if you're listed 6'8", 6'9", 6'10" as either a small forward or a big power forward, and you're not averaging anywhere from 7.5 to 12 rebounds a game, that's a concern. It really is, because there have been guys in this league who have been undersized, who packed a punch when it came to rebounding. Um, Chuck Hayes, Gerald, the Chuck Wagon, all the 6'6", but could play the power forward or center position and rebound the heck out of the ball. That's just one example. Gerald mentioned Kenny Lofton, again, undersized, could rebound the hell out of the ball. I think in the right opportunity, he still could. But yeah, that's a concern, and I would caution people who get enamored with somebody in the tournament because the team is on a roll, that they have a couple good games. The This is why they call it March Madness. Anything can and usually does happen, and sometimes what happens in madness is like where Gerald's from. What happens in madness stays in madness. It sometimes it just doesn't translate. I mean, I'm just I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. Johnny Flynn had a pretty good tournament, Gerald. Johnny Flynn. And Johnny Flynn was taken ahead of the greatest shooter in NBA history, Steph Curry. Because somebody, David Kahn,
Yes,
became so
he struck out twice.
blinders on with both Ricky Rubio and Johnny Flynn. Neither guy could shoot. But
Rubio finally found a shot in his 30s, but that was 10 years too late.
Fair enough. Yes, 10 years too late. But Kahn decided to take two guards that couldn't shoot. I mean, one guard, sure. If you want to have Rubio in the backcourt with Steph Curry, hey, that you're cooking with some peanut oil there, because they're both really good passers. Rubio's got a pretty good dribble, not as good as Steph's, but that'd be a pretty good backcourt. But you decided to take Johnny Flynn because Johnny Flynn had a couple good games for the the Syracuse Orangemen in the tournament. And as Gerald said, when you live by the tournament scouting, you die by the tournament scouting, because it's very hard to translate success in a finite period of about 4 weeks in that tournament to being a competent NBA player.
This leads me into someone who is now on the tip of a lot of a tongue of our audience, Zach Edey, who, yes, he did have a pretty good tournament, but he's also had a pretty good 2 years. He was someone this time last year in the mocks was barely going in the second round. When he started off the season, he was still very high up in the second round. He has managed to find himself, Magic Man, and some mocks that I'm looking at, including ESPN and others, in the high 20s to now in the teens. It's, I kid you not. This is a guy who, if you looked at the beginning of the year, this calendar year, was still in the 40s. Now you find him in as high as 15, 16, 17, right around where the Lakers are drafting. So, your thoughts, my friend, the Zach Edey experiment. I just think if the Lakers choose him, you're committing 10 to 15 minutes for him, 20 minutes for him by himself, because you cannot pair him with AD, because it just the transition defense you guys would get bid on so much, so hard, would really be that bad if you do. I want to see someone, if you're going to get a big and you go that way, and I know Stone doesn't want us to go that way, but if you go that way, you need to pair him up with someone agile enough to be able to play alongside with AD and to be able to play and flourish without AD as well.
I agree 100%, Gerald, and that does not fit Zach Edey's profile at all. Um, wow, the teens. I mean, I thought maybe the Raptors would select him. I believe they're 19th. That's the highest I could see him going. But now we're talking about in the teens, like in 13 to
This is a guy who
17
was
range.
never
Yeah,
even close to that this season.
no. I mean, if that happens, I mean this draft is pretty much the dry well of the past 20 years, as far as draft picks go. I'd be Gerald. Not a lot shocks me. That would shock me if Edie was taken in the teens. It really would.
I won't shock. It won't shock me. I don't. It won't. If Bronny was selected in the teens, that would shock me. If Edie selected in the teens at this point in time, just the way things seem to trend, that wouldn't 100% surprise me. But JSJ said the most high prospect is a second round. The most high prospect shouldn't even be drafted, to be honest with you. But as I mentioned last night when I was on the air by myself, Magic Man, that you heard the edict from
Rich
Rich
Paul.
Paul from Clutch, CEO Clutch, that Bronny will not accept a two-way contract. So if he's not drafted, he will not accept a two-way contract. That's arrogant, my friend. That's absolutely arrogant and just really trying to bypass the system for your own good.
Absolutely, Gerald. I mean, and again, um, in the same, it's so strange. Rich Paul said a few months ago that he doesn't understand why he's looked at as a villain, so to speak, as an agent provocateur, and which he is. I mean, he's just not an agent; he's literally an agent provocateur. He's trying to manipulate the system now to benefit his company rather than anybody else's. And you know what? In the world of business, if you want to try and manipulate the system, go for it. But don't expect everybody to just sit back and say, well, it is LeBron James and Bronny James, and it's an unprecedented situation. Da 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 da. No, I agreed with you last night, Gerald. I think it's a case of brash arrogance by Rich Paul to suggest that, Bronny James is somehow above a two-way contract, given the fact that scouts objectively have rated him a not even below average NBA player. He is a positional athlete. That means that you're barely considered an NBA prospect. Because if you're a positional athlete in the NBA, how many players would you gauge, Gerald, all cycle through the scouting combine? About would you say over 400?
Yeah, I'd say that.
Yeah. So if you're saying he's a positional athlete, that means he's at best 100, 120, 150 in that range. And yeah, as Gerald has pointed out, it's like it's more about, somebody's personal preferences at that point rather than objective physical attributes, um, intangible attributes that can lead somebody to be a success in the NBA. And Bronny James has shown that he's an average athlete. He's a below average shooter. He's a below average positional defender. And the fact that Rich Paul would claim that he is above a two-way contract, I agree with the Podfather. That is arrogance.
Yep, absolutely. But we'll see what happens. It is the Lakers fast break. It is Magic Man Chunk Rice along with me, Joe Glassford. Thanks so much for watching, listening. But yes, Kurt, absolutely. In honor of Cool Bro. No, I don't think he could beat Spider Man. But Kurt, always great to have you here for a good laugh or two. Magic Man, again, truly appreciate you stopping by. Sorry about the earlier thing that happened as far as your Canadian internet, your Canadian audio, so to speak. But again, truly appreciate you staying up late with me, bemiserating the fact that Boston is now one game away from the NBA Finals. But how frustrated does this make you to see their success at the hands of the demise of the Los Angeles Lakers?
Oh, Gerald, it pains me so much. I got so drunk the last time they won an NBA title, I wanted to just forget the whole night happened. I drank two bottles of red wine just to wash away that image out of it. And as much as I try to squeegee out that third eye, I couldn't scrub it away, and I don't want to see that again ever in my life. Um, and it's terrifying to think, as a basketball fan and a Lakers fan, that they're 5 wins away from a title. Yeah, it makes my blood boil like nothing else. My blood is now white hot. White blood cells, white hot blood, thinking that they're 5 wins away from a championship. And I can only say this: I really, really hope that the Dallas Mavericks finish off the Wolves as fast as they can. If it takes 5 games, okay. I would rather see the Mavs sweep the Wolves if the Celtics are going to sweep the Pacers. Let's get it on as soon as we can, because that would give. I think each team would have almost a week's rest if that happened, Gerald. So it's really up to it's really up to the Mavericks this go around,
You know
because
that trick knee though, that of Luka Doncic. You know the one that always looks bad on the defensive end, but yet looks good when he's doing the step back 3 pointers. Then all of a sudden it goes back. He goes back to limping again. Yeah, he needs a lot of rest for that. Yeah, yeah,
he does. He
yeah.
does. So I think it behooves the Mavericks just for game 3. If you annihilate the Minnesota Timberwolves at the American Airlines Arena tomorrow night, it that series ain't leaving Dallas, Gerald. Um, but we're gonna find out because I don't think this series is over by any stretch of the imagination. Even though we both said that the first team to win 2 straight games in this series was going to be a heavy favorite, I still give the Wolves a bit of a shot here, especially if they win game 3. But Gerald, Anthony Edwards needs to play a top shelf game on offense and defense tomorrow if the Wolves have any shot in hell of winning a game in Dallas. He needs to play ultra excellent defense and be on his game offensively if they have any shot of winning this series, because it's been 2 games and he hasn't shown up yet. He's shown up in spurts, he's shown up in a quarter or two, but he hasn't shown up for the whole game. And they're going to need him because the last game, Naz Reid was your leading scorer. Great player, fantastic player. On some nights, he would be your leading scorer and you would win, but not in the Western Conference Finals. Your best players need to be your best players, and he needs to show up, or else it's all she wrote because Dallas is playing very confidently, Gerald. To me, Gerald, this team is more confident than the 2011 team, as far as I'm concerned, because they're younger, they're a little deeper, they can play a different brand of defense than that Dallas Mavericks team could. That Dallas Mavericks team was older, and they played a lot of zone throughout their championship run. Dallas has pretty decent defenders, Gerald. Not to the level that Minnesota or Boston has, but they have pretty decent defenders at every level of the 5 positions, and they play scrappy even when they're not playing well offensively. So it's going to take a full 48 minutes for the Minnesota Timberwolves to win a game in this series.
But we will find out what that will be. And of course, tomorrow night, we'll see if we can go ahead and stop in with our thoughts and then get you set for the week ahead. But Magic Man, I truly appreciate you being here. Of course, Joe is out and about somewhere in the Southwest. He said Arizona, I think, or something like that. But any last thoughts, my friend, before we head on out?
Yeah, that's a terrifying picture of Joe.
Well, I know that's why I put it up there. I'm like I forget that when I go over to and act as I'm a member of the audience and I open up another tab, I forget that I have access on that. I think you guys do too for subscriptions. I think if you subscribe or something like that, you get extra emojis and stuff like that. So I put them in there. I don't know. I haven't really played with the subscription. I don't think we're still large enough yet for subscriptions and all that, but I think that's something that I think once we do start that you'll see you have the ability to go ahead and make emojis, which I already did of Sean. I'll put Sean in there. There's Shano. And there you go. There's me. Absolutely. As far as
All right.
yeah, so I was just like, oh yeah, I made that like a couple years ago. Wow. Yeah. But it is, of course, the Lakers Fast Break. Truly appreciate you joining us. Again, we'll probably stop by tomorrow night. But what do you think the Lakers need to accomplish here by the time that number 17 pick is done? You think when is your hard deadline for a coach needing to be hired?
I would say, the finals start June 6th. I would say about a week later, so June 13th. So roughly 3 weeks. I would say in 3 weeks you need to have a coach settled, because at that point in time the draft is only a few weeks away. You have free agency in about I don't know, Gerald, 3 weeks, less than that. You need to go. You need to get going and hit the ground running, because you need to be in a room with your coach on the whiteboard, and you need to be dissecting, analyzing, drilling what you guys need to accomplish in the draft and in free agency to try and put forward a team that can try and win 50 games and get a top 6 spot.
Absolutely. So we'll see what happens, but it is, of course, Magic Man Sean Grice, along with me, Gerald Glassford. Thanks so much again for watching and listening. I'm gonna get the guy. I'm gonna Xbox. Okay, I know it sounds like you want to do a subscription plan, but I want to come up with something that's a good value for our consumers. If you are going to invest in us on a monthly basis, I want to make sure you guys out there and gals are getting something really good out of it. I don't want to sit here and just, do something that doesn't help you out and doesn't provide you a good value for your monthly dollars. So I will see if I can get with the guys over the course of the next few months before the season starts and see if we can come up with something that it really makes it worthwhile value for you guys out there and make it something special for you guys. So truly appreciate Xbox. And thank you again. I cannot thank you enough for wanting to support us. It really humbles us, man. If we could just like clone each and every one of you now, that would like multiples of 10, 20 would just make things so much, I guess better off as far as, for the Lakers Fast Break brand and all that. But having you here on a Saturday night with us is greatly appreciated, Magic Man. So
100%, Gerald. We've got I'm not saying this to blow smoke up the arses of our 1,600 strong contingent. We do have the most loyal subs on the internet. They keep coming back. We try and be as informative and entertaining as possible, and we've got to keep the train on the tracks.
Absolutely. Membership tier number 1, according to Kurt Affair, should be special emojis and Olivia Rodrigo's phone number, since that's been a reoccurring thing since Cool Bro was on earlier today. But membership tier number 2, what should that be? Should that be Joe will announce your divorce once he takes a look at your wife's photo?
I think that could be arranged by Soro. Okay. Actually, he takes a look at a picture of your wife. He does a phone in, either leaves you a message or actually speaks to you on the phone and advises you to try and keep it together or get a divorce.
I'm telling you, he has a future in Cameo, but yeah, he doesn't want to listen to me on that one. But it is, of course, the Lakers Fast Break. It is the Metallica man, Sean Grice. He is here along with me, Joe Glassford. Thanks again for watching, listening. Truly appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow. Xbox says we don't need Joe talking to any of our women right now.
Oh, don't worry. You wouldn't lose any sleep if he started talking to him.
Oh, the one I'm worried about is Cool Bro. That's the one that scares me. So yes, we keep advising him. Do you have any pickup lines for me? Is what his first statement earlier today in the chat. I'm just like,
well, you need to start.
I know I wasn't that bad when I was 15. I'll just leave it at that. I know I wasn't that bad. So I'm just like, the youth of today.
Yeah, you and Cool Bro, you use pickup lines at a bar or club. You don't use them at school. You engage in conversation with the young ladies.
Forget about education. It's a pickup joint at high school. There you go. Absolutely. Kurt Affair, can Joe get me her phone number? Well, I'll see if Joe can do that for you. But Kurt, again, I put the feelers out to Mr. Stone Hansen. Hopefully he can get me a word back on his thoughts and his early perceptions on some of the NBA draft prospects that you and others have been asking about, because I asked him about one. Hopefully he'll be able to answer as well. So, and also get him back on the show here ASAP. So looking forward to that as well. But again, thank you to Tom and Jamie for deciding to go back and forth on what time and availability that they have. And sure enough, they decided to come on the air. I'm glad it worked out. And I found out after the fact. So I'm glad they were able to go ahead and entertain you guys earlier today. And Sean and I are here tonight. So hopefully we can kick off and end your weekend right. And your also Memorial Day as well, with some good stuff that only we can bring to each and every one of you right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast.